What's up, collectors? Welcome back to Films by Color. Today we're talking Letterboxd. We're going to be going through all of my 2023 stats. If you are a Letterboxd Pro user, you do get access to personalized stats based on your diary entries. And I always enjoy looking at those. It's a really fun trip down memory lane to see all of the films you watched last year. You can see all of the directors and actors and countries that you've been into recently. It's just a really fun way to document your film journey, and I highly recommend it. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Letterboxd site and take a look. All right, here we are. We've got 2023, a year in film for DJ Martinez III. That's me. And right off the bat, you've got some big call outs there across the top. We'll take a look at those stats first. We've got 215 diary entries. So I watched about 215 films last year, or at least that's how many I remember to log on Letterboxd. And that's a pretty good number. I'm pretty happy with that. That seems pretty consistent with what I've been doing the last couple of years since I really started getting serious about film when I started this YouTube channel. So 215 movies, I'll take it. That sounds good with me. 82 reviews is actually pretty surprising because I went from writing basically no reviews. I used to not write reviews at all, and I really tried to push myself to write at least a little something about every movie that I watched this year. Obviously, I didn't write something about every movie I watched. A lot of them are rewatches. I don't usually write reviews for rewatches, but 82 reviews, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to continue to push myself to write more reviews, just at the very least for myself, so I can look back and see how I felt about these movies when I watched them on that particular viewing. I also published 13 lists this year, and it looks like I spent a total of 352 hours on movies this year, which sounds like a lot. It almost makes you question what you're doing with your life. Let's go ahead and jump down here to the 2023 films. So it shows the films that you've watched from 2023. And for me, that is not a lot. I have not seen very many movies from this year at all. I mostly watch older stuff. The percentage of films I watch from this year is very, very small. I've only seen 16 films from this year. And of those 16, I only liked 6 of them. So I won't really talk about this section very much. I really recommend these first 6: Poor Things, Across the Spider-Verse, Holdovers, Barbie, Past Lives, and Asteroid City. I did like Asteroid City. Those are the big films that I've seen this year. I've still got a lot more to see, so hopefully I can check out some more great movies that came out last year. I'm going to try to play catch up here in the next couple of months before the Oscars, so wish me luck on that. This next section here breaks down your movie watching by week, so it shows how many films you watched per week. On average, out of 215 films logged, I saw 17.9 per month and an average of 4.1 films per week. Obviously, there's some weeks I didn't watch any films. There's a week here in January. That was actually my birthday week last year that I didn't watch any films. And then also there's another week here in August. But on average, I'm getting at least 1, 2, 3 films in per week. It looks like my biggest week was here the last week in September when I was cramming a bunch of fall films in for our top 10 fall movies video that I did with John. So a lot of cramming going on in that week there. It looks like the day that I watch the most films is obvious. That's Friday. I usually try to watch a movie every Friday night with Grace, so that makes perfect sense. Everything looks good. Milestones. We've got a little section here for milestones that isn't really anything in particular. It just lets you know when you watched what you watched. So first film I watched was on January 6th. That was Pinocchio. Last film I watched was Cash on Demand, a wonderful little bank heist movie that takes place at Christmas time. Most watch movies. This section is a little bit more interesting. So the films that I watched the most times last year, obviously the winner is After Hours. I saw that for the first time last year when the Criterion release came out and fell in love with that movie. Watched it 4 times total last year. I watched it again with the commentary on the Criterion disc. I got to see it in the theater at the Plaza Theater in 35mm, which was very cool. And then I watched it one more time, showing a friend of mine. It's a really fun movie to show people. Really love After Hours. That's one of my favorite movies now. Grace and I watched Clue twice. I watched M twice to prepare for our Criterion Corner podcast episode where we discussed that film. I also watched Jack the Giant Killer twice, which is a 1962 stop-motion adventure film that my daughter really, really loved. We watched it Friday night, and she wanted to watch it immediately again the next morning. So saw that one twice. I watched Waterworld twice. We got the 4K release of Waterworld that came out from Arrow Video this year. Beautiful release, and it has multiple cuts. So I watched the original theatrical cut, and I also watched the infamous Ulysses cut, which I quite enjoyed. I saw Across the Spider-Verse twice in the theater, and then I watched Tar twice as well. So yeah, those are the movies I watched more than once last year. Featured lists is an interesting section. So some lists that I published last year were my Indiana Jones and the Ranking of a Lost Art list, which was just me watching and ranking all the Indiana Jones films before the new one came out. Top 10 Criterion Date Night Movies is another video that Grace and I did together, where we ranked our top 10 date night movies that we enjoy watching together that are found in the Criterion Collection. That was a really fun video if you haven't seen that one yet. Then we have my top 10 summer movies list, which is another video I did with John, friend of the channel. We each counted down our top 10 summer movies, and then we also did one for fall movies, which I referenced earlier. Then in October last year, Grace and I put together a Spooktober first time watch list, which was mostly made up of pre-code horror films that were found in a collection on the Criterion channel, but we also popped in some newer things as well. That was a really fun month. We made it through a lot of classic horror stuff, and I really enjoy that month. I have fond memories of that. The next section here is called Genres, Countries, and Languages, and I have it ticked to most watched. I don't find the genre section very useful. They're all pretty similar. Mine is pretty skewed because I do watch a lot of family movies with my kids, so comedy is bumped up real high there. But the countries and languages are interesting to look at. Obviously, USA is going to be my number one spot there with 160 films, but I did watch quite a few UK films this year, and French films. And then language is going to be very similar, with English in the number one spot, French in the number two spot, and Persian in the number three spot. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the directors that I've been watching lately. This is a new section that I don't think they had last year. It's kind of fun. It's what I call the Netflix category section. They've got a bunch of very specific categories here, like Netflix likes to do, based on themes and nano genres. Obviously, holiday joy and heartwarming Christmas is going to be a big one for me. I watch a lot of Christmas movies in December. And there's some other weird ones in here. Gag, weird, and satire is a fun one there. So these are kind of fun to flip through. Let's get into the breakdown. They've got some infographics here, which are nice, starting with release date. Only 6% of the movies I watched last year came out in 2023, and 94% are older releases. That's pretty consistent with the last 2 years. I watch mostly older stuff, and I don't get around to watching as many new releases as I would like. I am happy with this one, though. This is watches versus rewatches. I like this ratio, 25% rewatch and 75% first-time watches. I think that's a good balance. I don't want to rewatch too many things. I want to mostly be watching first-time watches, but I do want to rewatch things sometimes. Otherwise, there's no reason to have all these things on the shelf back here. And then reviewed versus not reviewed. We kind of talked about this already. I'm almost at the halfway point of things I reviewed. I'd like to get that maybe up to the halfway point where I'm at least reviewing half of the things I'm watching, but I'm happy with the 38% right there. And I did watch 56 movies from my watch list, so making some good progress there. Unfortunately, I did also add 320 things to my watch list. So that is a never-ending list of movies that I'm never going to get through, but it is good that I'm making a little bit of progress there. All right, let's get into some fun stuff here. These are my most watched stars of the year, and Jacques Tati is way out in front with 9 films. It was a goal of mine to watch through the entire Jacques Tati box set from Criterion this year, and I made it through. I watched all 9 of his films, including 3 short films that are included in that box set. That was a really fun time. So he is my number 1 spot. And then right behind him is, we've got James Stewart with 5 films. It's a Wonderful Life and The Shop Around the Corner, which I watch every year in December. And then we watched 3 Westerns with him this year. Destry Rides Again, Winchester 73, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which are all incredible films, especially Destry Rides Again and Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Can't recommend those enough. Check those out if you haven't. But a very James Stewart year, which every year should be, because he is the greatest actor of all time. Alan Tudyk is up here. I'm not sure why he is here. So he is a voice actor, so he's done several Disney films. I guess these are all Disney films, except for Ice Age, which I watched with my kids a couple weeks ago in December. So that's why he's here. And then we've got Paul Frees, who I'm not immediately familiar with. Okay, so he's in a lot of the Rankin and Bass Christmas specials, and I watched a bunch of those with my kids this year because they just released the wonderful box set with all 18 films in it. So that's why he's there. Harrison Ford is there because Grace and I watched all of the Indiana Jones films this year. Then we've got Jack Black, Samuel S. Hines, Christopher Plummer, Jason Schwartzman, and Toni Collette, all with 4 films down there on the bottom. Directors. All right, of course, at the top, we've got Eric Rohmer and Jacques Tati. This is only counting feature-length films, not short films. That's why Jacques Tati is at 7. Eric Rohmer. I watched a lot of Eric Rohmer films this year. 7 of his, some rewatches, some first-time watches. So you can't go wrong with some Eric Rohmer in your life. Then we've got Rankin and Bass both there in the top. Steven Spielberg there because we rewatched the Indiana Jones films. Then we've got Michael Curtiz, one of my favorite directors. White Christmas we watch every year in December, and then two of these, Mystery of the Wax Museum and Dr. X, came from our pre-code horror October that we had. And then Mildred Pierce is a great movie. First time watch this year with Grace. That was our first episode of Noir Bar that we did. We still haven't done any more of those, but that was fun. We made Mildred Pierce's and watched Mildred Pierce, a wonderful noir film from 1945. And then we've got Tom Moore, who's a great director. If you haven't checked out Tom Moore, I highly recommend. I watched through the entire Irish folklore trilogy this year. 3 different beautifully animated films that he put out, and this is a lovely box set from Cartoon Saloon that I can't say enough good things about. So Tom Moore, happy to have him there in the top 10. The next section is very granular. It's crews and studios, which is kind of fun to look through. We won't get into it here, but you can look at the writers, the editors, the cinematographers, visual effects artists, all of the different people that it takes to make a movie. Here we go. We've got my most liked review, which was my Barbie review, where I just made a crack at the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. So that was my most popular review, which might say something about my writing ability. And then my most popular list was the Spooktober first time watch list, which we talked about earlier. Highs and lows. So this isn't my rating, but this is based on the average overall rating on Letterboxd. The highest averaged movie that I watched this year was Across the Spider-Verse at 4.5. The lowest average was Fool's Paradise. The most popular film I watched last year was Barbie, and then the most obscure was Season's Greetings, which is a wonderful little Popeye theatrical short that I try to watch every year in December with the kids. Here's a fun section where I'll probably make some people angry and have to hear about it in the comments, but this is the rated higher than average and rated lower than average. So it takes my rating and it compares it to everyone else on Letterboxd. So we've talked about these films before. Into the Woods is a film I like more than anyone else. And Paperman, Dan in Real Life, and The Way, Way Back are 3 of my favorite indie films, and I really, really love those, and apparently other people don't love them as much as I do. And then Baby Driver and It's a Disaster there. Films I don't like as much as everybody else. Dazed and Confused, the new Mission Impossible movie, Wish, which is a movie I didn't like at all. Eyes Wide Shut, Elf, and Silence of the Lambs, which I did like. I gave that a pretty solid score. I guess I just didn't give it as high of a score as everybody else. Then we've got this giant wall of movies of all the films watched in 2023, which looks like a lot when you put them all, stack them all on top of each other. That's not even all of them. You have to hit see all to see the rest. But we won't do that for now. We'll go to the world map, which is a really cool section down here. It shows what you're watching around the globe. Obviously, USA is where I'm watching most of my films, but we've got 5 films from Canada. We've got 3 films from Mexico, a little bit of Argentina, Spain, France, Germany, Poland, a couple films from China. We've got India, Iran, Turkey, Australia, and then 1 film from New Zealand all the way down here in the corner. So that's a good spread. I would like to get a little bit better of a spread. I don't know how many African films I can get my hands on, but maybe some more South American films here. And I need to start watching some Russian films. You know, there's a lot of great Russian films that I have not seen. I didn't watch any Russian films last year. So hopefully I can do a little better in the upcoming year. And then it closes out with just some highly rated films that I have yet to see. And like I said at the beginning, I do want to get to most of these before award season is over. I still need to see Oppenheimer. Monster sounded really interesting to me. I do want to see that. I've heard nothing but good things from a lot of my friends about Godzilla -1. And then Anatomy of a Fall, which did very well at the Golden Globes, and Killers of the Flower Moon. I will definitely be watching both of those in the next couple months. So those are all of my 2023 stats. I hope you had a good time looking back at everything we've done here on the channel. It's been a big year, but it's been a really fun year, and I've really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for 2024. Let's keep the conversation going down in the comments below. Feel free to share some of your stats down there, and go ahead and post your Letterboxd handles down there so I can follow you and other subscribers can follow you as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have another great year in film in 2024, and until next time, keep collecting, and I'll be back with another video real soon.